I hope someone, I hope everyone could listen to the podcast and never blow up account, but it happens. I mean, if you're trading volatile stocks, it happens. But when it does happen, take responsibility for it and recognize that you never want to go back there. And, page 64, most of those who successfully break the cycle and make the shift in thinking have experienced so much pain from large losses that has the positive effect of stripping away their illusions about the nature of trading. And, I always say, if you take a big loss, that might be the most valuable thing that ever happens to you.
We are celebrating more than 10 million downloads on the SteadyTrade podcast. It's always nice to give something a little back. I just want to talk to you about Oracle Daily Alerts. If you don't have StocksToTrade, you don't fully need it just yet. You can get something called Oracle Daily Alerts, and it basically at 10 a.m. every morning sends you an email with what StocksToTrade's Oracle, its cosmic algorithm, what it recommends the hottest stocks are of that day, and what the buy and sell points are. So you can not only look and hopefully aim to profit, but you can also get some sort of indication what the hottest stocks are and why they're up to start your learning.
Welcome back to the SteadyTrade podcast. We are continuing our series of our top 3 favorite trading books. And, longtime listeners will know Stephen came up with 2. But hey, we always kind of, like in school when they kind of the grade curve, we cut Steven some slack and we let him come up with 2. But anyway, go to the link below. Well, if you're listening on podcast, or on iTunes, go to SteadyTrade.com. We'll link it below. You'll see all of the past book picks and as well as the future book picks. So if you're curious about what the next book is, today we're talking about a great one I really enjoy, Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. I actually only read this about a year ago, but this might be, listeners of the podcast know I'm an avid reader. It's kind of my main hobby, and I've read, I don't even know how many trading books, but this one kept getting recommended to me. Like every time I would post about a book, people would say, have you read Trading in the Zone? Have you read Trading in the Zone? So I finally bought it, I think about a year ago. And, it's always, when I decide whether a book is good or not, I determine it by the number of dog years. And I mean, I would say there's, 30, 40 dog years in a 200-page book. So I would think that would be a good endorsement for Trading in the Zone. So this was one of Steven's picks. So Steven, I'll just, we've got Kim and Steven here. Steven, if you want to kind of intro, since it was your book.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, you say that you've got the dog years and you went through it over and over, and I actually managed to complete it. And that is probably more of a recommendation. It's a more powerful recommendation than any of your recommendations, because I don't finish books.
And I know we like to joke, but I mean, I talk about this. I mean, listen, I know reading, I'm almost 70 years old. I know reading is kind of a lost art. And, the world we live in, I know a lot of people just aren't that avid readers. And I think that's a great, endorsement of the book that, hey, and there's nothing wrong with that. Steven's not necessarily a reader, but he finished this. I think that I agree. So.
No. I mean, I'm also an advertising copywriter, and I don't read there either, but I somehow learned to write. I'm a bit of a weird person, but no, the book blew me mind. Honestly, read this a couple of years ago when I was obsessively trading. Went back to it more recently for this episode, and much of it still really rang true. He just literally lays out psychology as it is, and it's basically a book on psychology and why we think the way we think, and how to change the way we're thinking. It ultimately ends up with a system of to change your behavioral psychology to become a successful trader. But the one thing that hooked me from the absolute beginning was, he said, we are born, and every single thing we learn in life is the absolute opposite of what we should know to be successful traders. So it's an absolute deconstruction and reconstruction of the mind to be successful, because every single thing our brain tells us is the opposite to what we should do in trading to be successful. And that's why 95% of traders lose, and that's why 5% of traders win, because the 5% or the 8% are the ones who manage to reconfigure the brains.
I tell you, you talk about the baseline of your amygdala. I probably pronounced that wrong.
Amygdala.
But your fight or flight, man. I mean, listen, if you're looking to fight or flight, a low float squeezer, if you run away, that's
FLNT. FLNT was not low float, but it was a squeezer today. Like, if we talk about FLNT, any single person's emotion would be, this is a bad stock. It's got a bad long-term history. It doesn't make any money. I just want this to work because I want to be a good trader. But the bottom of the book is that, and I was saying this in the last podcast, is you've got to take all kind of rationality out of the market, because the market doesn't have any rationality. You've got to take all emotion, and you've got to strictly be trading based on a profitable plan that involves profitable risk reward over and over and over.
So Kim, this was a new book to you. It is a lot of psychology related stuff. So this is, these are the kind of books that I really like, because it's cool to like have chart patterns and stuff like that. And actually next week is going to be all chart patterns, but so much of this is up here. And obviously that's kind of your specialty. So what did you think?
I loved it. And I thought it is a book that anybody could read, even those who don't want to be traders, because it just felt like if you take the word trading out and put the word life in place, and you're still getting like really kind of almost sacred wisdom practices, right? There's things being talked about in that book that have to do with how we live our life. If you're constantly being triggered, if you don't learn how to be neutral and respond versus react, you're going to have losses in life and obviously in trades. So it was such a fantastic book. The one book it did remind me of is a book I chose for later on in our book club, called The Inner Voice of Trading by Mike Martin. So I found a lot of similarities in it, but I felt Mike's they're both different, but I loved it. It was a great book. I feel like I've read this book before, except the concepts, it's not around trading. I've read it with like Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. How do you learn how to be with whatever shows up without being in resistance to it? And that's what it spoke to me.
Yeah, this one of my first highlights, and again, I've got a lot of them, that kind of touches on what Stephen and you said. If you're following along, it's on the top of page 27. One of the many contradictions of trading is that it offers a gift and a curse at the same time. The gift is that perhaps for the first time in our lives, we're in complete control of everything we do. The curse is that there are no external rules or boundaries to guide or structure your behavior. The unlimited characteristics of the trading environment require that we act with restraint and self-control, at least if we want to create some measure of consistent success. The structure we need to guide our behavior has to originate in your mind as a conscious act of free will. This is where many of the problems begin. And, I'll jump back to Stevie. This is something I mention all the time. One of the biggest issues I have with trading is there are zero barriers to entry. I mean, zero. People always joke about you'd never build a skyscraper unless you had an engineering degree. You'd never do brain surgery without, a medical degree. But trading, every broker in the world, if you can write your name on a form, will take your money and let you start trading today.
No, and I'll just add to that and say that it's the only it's the only profession with zero barrier to entry, but 100% full accountability.
Exactly. Yep. Because at the end of the day,
you can't rely on anyone else.
Yep. And it's your account balance. And that account balance is the ultimate arbiter. And it doesn't care. That account balance doesn't care. It is what it is. And there's no do-overs either.
The quote that hit me was, if you're afraid of being wrong or losing money, you're going to have a problem. And you could apply that to life, right? Everybody's afraid of being wrong. Nobody wants to lose money, but yet, and this episode Stephen and I just recorded, part of what Stephen said is he attributes his success right now to this neutrality. And that is really what it seems like that book is all about. How to come from a place of neutrality. And if you keep, fooling yourself that you're not going to be triggered, it's like recognize you're going to be triggered and then step back into neutrality. That's what the book said to me.
Yeah, I agree. But you can't shut off your emotions. You can't tell your emotions no. Maybe by reading the book, you might learn that a little bit faster. But ultimately, the first 100 trades that you take, you're going to be scared.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to be shaken and you're going to be panicking. But if you stay in the game long enough, you'll eventually have a rational, unemotional approach. And that's when you start really taking the right risk rewards. When you start thinking, if I miss this stock, I don't care because I've been trading for 4 years and I don't care if I miss it because I don't care. And I'm not trading to make money. I'm just trading to stick to my plan because that makes me money. Once you lose the fear of missing out because you're okay with it because you've done it so many times and you've proven that your strategy works. Once you're not bothered about the profits, you're more bothered about sticking to the pattern. It all works out. It all works out for the best.
And Tim, what you just read that quote, how it talks about how you come into it being able to create whatever you want the plan to look like. I mean, what I'm hearing is SteadyTrade has that plan. Like you guys are giving. So in one sense, what he's saying is true, but not for the listeners of SteadyTrade, because you guys are basically giving people, here's the rules, here's the boundaries, here's the roadmap. Stick to that. Then you'll be able to do this.
100%. We've joked about that, and I need to look it up. I think it might be Larry Hittite, but again, that quote of he was one of the most successful, and I might be misattributing this, but it was a hugely successful trader, and he talked about that point of he could put his rules in the phone book, for free, and people would still fail, So,
but. I remember in the podcast where I outlined the 9 basics or the 7 basics of short selling, and you said even though you've done this episode, everyone will watch it and still fail. It's true, and I know we're talking about Mark Douglas, but I'm thinking about writing my own trading book, and I've got my own quote that I've just thought up now.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. Here we go, and off the top of the head, Steven Johnson, Midnight in Dubai quote. Lay it on us.
The consistency you seek is in your mind, not the markets.
Ooh, I like it.
It's actually from the Trading in the Zone book, but it could have been me. Could have been me.
The author's listening. He's saying, "It sounds so familiar."
He's about to sue us. No. But how important is it that the markets are unpredictable? You can't rationalize the market. You can't predict it. It's completely irrational. The only consistency that you can ever have is in the brain, that you will stick to your plan consistently. I just thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, and
so you have control over. I mean, you got to realize you don't have control, but then that kind of gives you control.
And that, that's that idea of responsibility. And Stephen made that point a few minutes ago of it's just you. I joked about the account balance. I mean, it's all on you to take and so another, I'm only on page 29, but
because that's the only amount of pages you read, I bet.
Whatever. Look, I got a dog ear on page 187. There's a dog ear on page 187.
You are folding them before the podcast. You are folding them before the podcast.
He's got yellow highlights.
Yeah, Stephen, I unlike you. Anyway, the problem that Mark Douglas mentions is the failure to take responsibility. And this is something that I want to touch on, because I know, and Stephen, I'm sure will agree with this, a lot of new traders out there fall into that, following alert stuff and following other people, chat rooms, okay, people on Twitter. And I tell you, if you want random results, follow other people. And the quote I highlighted a year ago, it was, the way to avoid responsibility is to adopt a trading style that is all intents purposes random. I define random trading as poorly planned trades or trades with no plan at all. It is an unorganized approach that takes into consideration an unlimited set of market variables which do not allow you to find what works on a consistent basis and what does not. That's something we hammer and hammer and hammer on, of having that plan and then tracking it. I mean, you might think you might think this setup works for you, but if you don't track it, you don't know. And I think that's where, he says you'll get random results and you won't know why you're getting random results.
The concept of self-responsibility, I think, is the biggest concept this book is addressing. That he just comes out and so emphatic about that, and that's why I think people who like Ayn Rand or like the Fountainhead, which is also going to be in the book club later, that's what it's an advocacy of. And I'm going to just quickly shout out that that's my first practice, and my 5 practices of my book is self-responsibility. And that is what is so rare. Most people don't take responsibility for their life, never mind for their trades, because it asks you to be with, a lot, to take full responsibility. Your ego doesn't like that, because your ego wants to be, so I think it's just powerful. People should read this even if they're not trading.
But I just want to reach out to the people who are pretty like loose cannons and emotional and crazy. And I want to say that, like, even if you are wild and crazy.
Are you going to give your phone number out on the podcast again?
No. Did I ever do that? I don't think I give a phone number out.
Or Instagram.
I think you tried, and I think I stopped you from giving out.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
No, but
you girls or for everybody?
Girls.
Uh-oh.
Girls and lady boys. But no, honestly, I have to say that there is hope for people who are a bit reckless, a bit crazy, a bit stupid in a silly way. They make silly mistakes. I want to say that there's hope for all those people, because I'm exactly like that. And if you continue to practice the skill of discipline, eventually you will get better at it. It's the same as practicing the skill of writing. You'll get better at writing. If you like learning to run or lift weights, you'll get stronger. Discipline is exactly the same thing. No matter how crazy or mental you are, if you practice it over years consistently, you'll get it. You'll get it like anything else. Doesn't matter what personality you're born with. Some might get it faster than others, but you will ultimately improve and get it. I just want to say it.
So the
drop.
Yeah, exactly. Not at all. So, and this is something that, another caption that I think is important, and, and ties into that long-term mindset type thing. I mean, you have to make these mistakes over and over again, and you have to feel that pain. And, just like, blowing up an account, I hope someone, I hope everyone could listen to the podcast and never blow up an account, but it happens. I mean, if you're trading volatile stocks, it happens. But when it does happen, take responsibility for it and recognize that you never want to go back there. And, page 64, most of those who successfully break the cycle and make the shift in thinking have experienced so much pain from large losses that has the positive effect of stripping away their illusions about the nature of trading. And, I always say, if you take a big loss, that might be the most valuable thing that ever happens to you. Because if you forget it, if you bury it, pretend like it never happened, but if you embrace it and you say, man, I'm never going back there, that's a huge, huge shift in your mindset.
Yep. I have a question. There's a quote that I love, but I want to understand it. Perceive what the market is offering from its perspective. So I get the concept of that, but tell me what would be the market's perspective, guys?
Well, that would be, in my opinion, the way I would interpret that is, the classic "don't fight the trend." Now, so if I'm looking at this, and I'm going to talk about a setup that isn't what Stephen would short, so if I see, if I'm sitting here and people do this, if it's a steadily uptrending chart, this stock has been steadily uptrending for quite some time. We're in a strong market. It's in a hot sector. Maybe let's say it has earnings. I mean, people short earnings winners. It makes me want to shoot myself in the face, but people do it. You've got a strong.
I did that this morning. I shorted an earnings winner this morning. They had results saying they were expecting better than expected earnings, and I shorted it. I lost $228.
I didn't realize they had earnings.
FLNT sent out a news release saying we've got better expected earnings coming, and I shorted it and lost. It was my biggest loss of the month.
Allow me to finish. Hand on the Bible.
$228.
Hand on the Mark Douglas Bible. I didn't realize they had earnings. So anyway,
yeah, they're turning profitable as a company.
But for sake of the conference, but they still had a bad chart. But Kim, basically, if everything is right with this stock and you short it, you're fighting what the market is telling you, and vice versa. If this is just a terrible stock, terrible fundamentals, it's done 6 reverse splits, and I know you don't know what a reverse split is yet, but they've done a bunch of reverse splits. All it does is go down, spike down. The prospects are terrible. They're not in a hot sector, and you try and dip by that stock. You're betraying what the market is telling you. The market is telling you this stock is a piece of shit, and you're buying it because it's perking up on day one. So that's what that means to me.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And can I just say, like, with trading, it is such a blind alley. You're walking through the dark with little light to guide left or right. But and you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots of success looking back. And when you do connect the dots looking back, it's unbelievably simple. Once you get discipline, organized and sorted and down, it's the most simple mathematical equation you'll ever make. There's 8 bullish factors and there's 1 bearish factor. It's a long.
Yep.
There's 8 bearish factors. There's 1 bullish factor. It's a short.
And doesn't mean the
as simple
trade
as that for me.
Right. Doesn't mean
doesn't
work.
Doesn't.
Go ahead. Yep.
It doesn't.
I was putting words in your mouth. Yeah.
Like I mean, Mark Douglas's 5 fundamentals is anything can happen. You don't need to know what's going to happen next in order to make money. There's a random distribution between wins and losses in any given set of variables that define an edge. An edge is nothing more than an indication of higher probability of one thing happening over the other. Every moment in the market is unique. The 5th principle, yeah, you've got it as well. The 5th principle is the most important one. Every moment in the market is unique. But if you have 8 bullish factors and 1 bearish, or 8 bearish and 1 bullish, 90% of the time, or 92% of the time, it's going to work. That's not going to say it's going to work that time, but stats don't lie. Facts don't lie. History doesn't rhyme, but it repeats itself. Play the probability 100 times and you're going to make money 92 out of 100 times. And it's as simple as that. God damn it.
If you're not watching on YouTube, it's funny. So I was and Stephen will accuse me of manipulating, but I page 130, I had it open.
Dog-eared?
Dog-eared and highlighted, and he just went through. So page 130 is the fundamental truths that relate to the skills, and he just went through all 5. And Stephen, I'm starting to get concerned.
We had the same predictions on the new year as well. I'm starting to think you have an ability to rewind time without me knowing.
I'm just afraid that I don't know. There's some.
Maybe it's all these years of. Dude, all these years of talking to each other.
Yeah, or some sort of bizarre mind meld. I didn't do any mushrooms. Maybe you did some mushrooms, but I don't know.
So at some point, I'm going to start eating meat and stop drinking and going to the gym.
Oh, you're
eventually going to happen.
When that happens, you're gonna be a millionaire when that happens. Eliminating fear is only half of the equation. The other half is developing restraint. That was my other favorite quote. And it also gives me a little confidence. Not that I have perfect restraint, I don't, but I do think I have I've done a lot of work to try to develop restraint. So I feel like, okay, now the other half is eliminating the fear, because I still have the fear. But I really like that quote a lot.
I still want to, even though I'm going to fight Steven tooth and nail to, I know he's the devil on your shoulder to get you to trade real money. I can't wait to see your restraint when he talks you into short in some 300% runner with 200,000 float and is trading 5 million shares in pre-market. I can't wait to see your restraint then.
Yeah, I can't wait as well. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I can feel that that's a whole bunch of like.
That was building up in his
ice cream bar in front of me and asking me for a restraint. That's what I think.
Honestly, I don't want to be harsh, and I don't want to be I don't want to discredit books because they really help you learn. But like, I don't give a shit how many books you read until you get in that situation.
100%.
You have no clue how you will react, and it's like Mike Tyson said: until you get punched in the face.
You got a plan.
What did Mike Tyson say? No one has a plan until they get punched.
Everyone
has a plan until they get punched in the face. Totally. And it's one of Tim Bohen's favorite quotes. I only know it because he said it so many times. But it's so true. But will you learn faster? Probably, because you've got the base knowledge. But will you not cover a low float, which is pushing with 1 million volume? Probably as well. A few times.
I'm ready, but I think the concept of that, that it isn't just fear that you have to beat or the wisdom of the knowledge of how to do it, but that restraint is part of what this requires. I just don't know if that many people realize how important this is to the trading, to becoming a successful trader.
I think so many overestimate the, and listen, we talk about chart patterns every freaking episode, but I think so many people overestimate, charts, volume, SEC, all this stuff. Because once you're in that trade, here's the biggest takeaway. Once you're in that trade, nothing matters. It doesn't matter what the fundamentals are. It doesn't matter what the volume is. It doesn't matter what VWAP is. It doesn't matter what the Fibonacci's are. Once you enter, it's just you and the price action. And I think many overlook that, Kim. They just think, it's chart patterns or it's volume or it's VWAP, so.
At the end of the day, make a plan and stick to it. And you've hammered that home since episode 1. Trading is as simple as this. It's not simple at all, but if you could ever make it simple, it's as simple as this. Work out the bullish factors, work out the bearish factors. According to the bullish versus bearish factors, predetermine a good risk reward. Based on that risk reward, make a plan, stick to the plan. End of story. It's as simple as that. That is trading.
Well said. So, in summary, I think we're all agreed. We all love this book, right? Yep.
It's my favorite book of all. It's my favorite book at all.
So, in recap, it is Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. And I think I mentioned this in the beginning. It's again, as an avid reader, I always appreciate it when books aren't 301 pages. As a lifelong reader, you'll get to recognize this, especially like self-improvement books. They're always 301 pages, and you can tell a lot of the times. You can tell that it's like, wait a minute, you talked about this 3 times. I can tell you're trying to hit 300 pages. So this is it's exactly 200 pages plus the index. So it's a quick read. I mean, the type is relatively big. So I appreciate that. Again, in a world, I know a lot of people aren't big time readers. It's a quick read, 200 pages. He doesn't repeat himself to get to 300 pages.
No, it's succinct, yeah.
Yep.
But they need to become readers, don't they, Tim? Because you're telling us to read charts till our eyes bleed. So if we can't read, how are we going to be able to prep? And all this work, Steven says, 5 hours a day of study, that's reading right. Charts. Like, you're going to have to lose the I'm not a reader angle.
It's not reading. Reading charts is not reading. I don't see them as the same thing. Reading's reading words on a page. Looking at charts is it's more of an analysis. It's not you're not reading, you're analyzing.
But I think if you're trying to get into your psychology, I think reading is a great way to do that because you're thinking about these things. So,
no, but if we're going to close it, I just want to say one quote. It was my favorite because it was 6 words long. So managed to get to the end of the sentence. And it's trade not with emotions, but probabilities. And if you can encapsulate the book in 6 words, I'd say that. If you can master the discipline of trading, not with emotions, but probabilities, say your psychology is 90% there. You need to learn how to trade, but psychology is 90% there.
So in summary, it is Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas. As I always like to remind you, if you're listening on iTunes or Android, head over to SteadyTrade.com. There'll be a link to the book. There'll be a link to the past books if you're looking for other trading books. And then also, if you're prepping, which hopefully we're hoping you're reading along with us. That was kind of the goal of the book club. Next month will be Technical Analysis Using Multiple Time Frames by Brian Shannon. This book is expensive. It always goes up and down on Amazon, but usually it's like $70-$80. I bought this book in 2009 when it came out, and I've kept it for 11 years. 11 years. I still refer back to this thing. There's all my dog ears. I highly recommend this book over and over and over again. I mean, going back to 2009, I was a newbie in charting then. I didn't know what support, resistance, breakouts, breakdowns, and I devoured this book. And I think, again, as I mentioned, it's very succinct. It's well done. It's 180 pages. Highly recommend it. So Google Technical Analysis Using Multiple Time Frames by Brian Shannon, and which reminds me, I need to put Brian Shannon on our guest list. So check it out, and we will see you for the next edition of the Steady Trade Podcast.